Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, and today we are celebrating the closest we are getting to Holloween this year. To do so, we return to our old friends in the Impossible Lands and examine the undead nation of Geb. Probably going to be on the longer side, so let's get started. If we really want to go far back, we can talk about the rule of She of Ebon Feathers at the site of present-day Malkatar. But the story of Geb starts with Geb, a lesser son of a great Assyrian noble house, which was practically wiped out. He used his knowledge of necromancy to take control of the southernmost provinces of the ancient empire, renaming the region after himself, as one does. The power was all he wanted. That was until another archmage, Nex, a man who started as a poor orphan, rose to power just north of him. That was the day of destiny for which the impossible lands would forever change. The Thousand-Year War was legendary, leading to the warping of the area to the familiar sites of the Manor Waste today. The two sides were powerful enough to cast spells which would destroy the other's country 1,000 times over, and each strong enough to protect against such spells. However, in the end, Geb came on top, resurrecting the population of Geb which had fallen during the war, about a third of its entire population, and turned them into a bone army to march on Nex. Nex retreated into a demiplane, and never came back. He had won. Geb won. But after so long, he did not know what he would do without a rival. And so, Geb took his own life. However, his desire to once again fight his rival stopped him from passing on, and Geb rose again as the Ghost King. Many of his closest followers used this as a sign of the enlightenment and almightiness of undeath, and followed him onto the path of those who never rest. This, combined with the dead citizens turned undead soldiers, and the nation of Geb became what it is today, a nation of the undead. Geb is a nation built both on the living and the dead. Well, the living, the intellectual undead, and the mindless undead to be more accurate. The undead are mostly in charge, but there are still something those who are still alive can do to get ahead. These still living people are referred to as the quick because you need to stay on your toes, stay one step ahead of your doom. And those that do live there, many of them have stayed head and shoulders ahead of some of their undead rivals and have been able to live decent lives. What allows Geb to function are the regulations known as the dead laws. These rules dictate the relationship between the quick and the dead. It gives basic rights to the quick and the dead, except for those who work in the fields. That's mindless undead work. All who die on Gebite soil are owned by a state and likely reconstituted into a skeleton to work in the field. Positive energy is also outlawed on Geb land, as you might imagine. And so on and so forth, dictating the total rights of all across the undead nation. The country is run by the ghost of Geb, who hates the ruling the country part of ruling a country. Therefore, it is the group of sycophants known as the Bloodlords, who are made up of around 39 of the greatest necromancers of the nation, who usually do the day-to-day power. These Bloodlords range from those who were students of Geb while he was still alive, to others who are actually still quick. Of course, it is not hard to imagine that there are plenty of courtly intrigues and the different Bloodlords all working to make sure that they come out ahead. That is where factions come in. As time has gone on, the Bloodlords have split into factions. allowing those with similar goals to build alliances to help protect from intrigue, or at least give you someone else you can pin the blame on when things don't quite work your way. Over the years, the strength of the factions have changed, and there are currently 5 great factions which take center stage. The Builders League are in charge of the creation of buildings in the nation, and own many of the oldest. Also, the people you should probably talk to if you want to find secret passages. The Expert Guild handles foreign trade, and they work well at trading Geb's surplus of crops for peace in the region. The reanimators are in charge of both the reanimation of corpses and putting them to work in the fields, because the crops need to come from somewhere. The tax collectors need no introduction, except to say undead tax collectors are probably scarier than living ones. And finally, the Celebrants. The newest faction is in charge of hype. With a war likely coming, they organize great parades to continuously build support for Geb and his nation. That time of year when everything is dry. Anyway, Geb, being a land of undeath, has few settlements and landmarks to its name. They would rather use extra land as fields to make food to export. 2 of the largest landmarks that are there are the Axon Woods and the Field of Maidens. The Axon Woods have been the large forest in the center of Geb since long before it was Geb. However, the power of undeath in the nation has twisted the forest, making it home to undead dryads and unseelie fae. The Field of Maidens was formed when Holloween, the nation for the south, tried to invade Geb. The results are miles of statues, standing to show the world the extent of Geb's power. For smaller settlements across the country, Greydirge is a city which is made out of the bones of the deceased, instead of reanimated as skeletons. This place also is home to the largest temple to Zon-Kuthon in Geb. Corpsite is north of the Axon Woods, and is designed to produce free-range humans to consume as opposed to the various ranches elsewhere. And Shadowshore is a half-flooded city which once belonged to the Uruxi. Now it is a popular stop for passing ships, especially those who don't want to have direct contact with Malkatar, or at least minimal contact. There are 2 major cities in Geb, the first being Yeld. Yeld is the northernmost city, the one closest to the border and the Manor Wastes. The city is shaped by war, being the front lines ready for war against Nex. Even after the original war ended, the city continues to train and build up the armies as if the war might start up again any day. It's only helped that to have the Manor Wastes to give them a place to continue to train. It is a continuous arms race between the various interests in the city to be the most helpful to the army, and to the nation as a whole. And the city has a tighter security for both reasons. The Blood Lord in charge of the city is Blood Lord Hekojet, a mummy who is one of the oldest of the Blood Lords. It is just below him which we find the Dread Commanders, who only report directly to the Blood Lord, and are in charge of running the day-to-day, as well as the army. 4 of the 7 Dread Commanders are generals of the armies of Geb, while the other 3 are representatives of the civil administrations of the city, the trade ministry, and the schools. And recently, with the war fast approaching, Geb has moved to create a Warmaster Council, whose duty specifically is the upcoming war against Nex, with the leader of this council also now the 8th Dread Commander. As elsewhere in the nation, the people of Yeld are made up of both the dead and the quick. However, Yeld is special. As the crux of the nation's defenses, the city is protected from all forms of espionage, and the potential of living between the dead is too high. Therefore, all quick within the city needs to have a sponsor to vouch for them, protect them, and leave their mark conspicuously on them, else they'd be at the mercy of any dead in the city. This sounds like slavery, but there are rules in place to ensure that both parties have their rights, and to misuse someone under the sponsorship is itself a serious crime, and almost as serious as trying to cast heal magic. Now, going through the city, one of the most known monuments are the magic schools. So let's start with them. The Moratorium is the largest of the schools. The huge claw-shaped tower is where the practical needs of the armies are taught. The place offers no comfort, but it offers the bodies of the weak to experiment on. So that's a plus, depending on what side you're on. The Synostosis, or the Arch of Bones, was formed to maintain the nation's ultimate defense, the Bone Wall. The bone magic learned during these days is still taught at the Academy. The Shadow Academy focuses on planar pursuits, which, to keep with the undead theme, mainly focus on the Shadow Plane, the Negative Energy Plane, and the Boneyard. The Tricastum is the smallest, and the Shadowcast by the Eddas has forced it to rely more on guest lecturers than having permanent staff. However, it makes up for it by being in the Three Gates district, the most hospitable place for the quick and yelled, and also for being the academy to most likely have ancient lore. As for the rest of Yeld, the Outer Ring is designed to be a confusing mess of streets, guaranteeing that any invaders will soon find themselves lost. All academies outside the Moratorium are found here, as well as the smokestacks, which serve as the warehouse district of the city, the Twin Stories Theater, which combines two shows together through the use of the material and ethereal planes, and the meeting place of philosophers known as the Echoing Pillars. And in the inner city, the two most important buildings are the Pallid Princess, which is one of the largest temples to Ugathoa, and the Panopticon, the center of the city's government. But of course, the largest city is of course the capital, Malkatar. This is the city where Geb built Geb. This is the city where Geb took his own life and rose as a ghost. This is the city where Geb became tired of ruling the country and forced Erasni to do it for him for centuries, until she slipped the leash. From a distance, one might mistake the bustle of the city for a forever festival. On the streets, however, one will see firsthand the casual cruelty which keeps the capital of the country of ghosts functioning, or at least keeps its undead citizens from getting bored. As with all of Geb, the dead laws apply within Malkatar. However, as the city is expected to interact with others from outside the country, the dead laws as written cannot work without cancelling all diplomacy. Therefore, there are more leniencies when it comes to laws, but leniencies which are quickly placed aside when one pushes too much. The city is where the ghost of Geb is forever bound, and he is technically the ruler of the country. He just hates to actually rule. Erasni, when made a lich, was first to rule the country as the ultimate mockery to all would-be paladins and crusaders. But she is now walking the earth, leaving Geb to actually ignore his job. God knows he's not doing anything specifically to run the country. Of course, as the capitalist city, as the city is the capital I meant, the Bloodlords use the city as the center of their politics, and it is divided between some of the biggest names in the country. But outside the laws of the undead, the city also follows the laws of the divine. The city having one of the largest temples to Ugathoa, to the point of having a large statue which is given sacrifices which towers in the center of town. The local high priestess is one Riniel Brennan, and she is one of the most powerful creatures in a town full of the most powerful. The daughter of Ugathoa, a match for any bloodlord in matters of both battle and politics. Like the entire nation, the city is made up of both quick and dead. The undead live in their largest number in the city, and are sustained by large ranches around the city, and therefore able to accomplish whatever they want without worrying about sustaining themselves. With this, Malkatar has become a center of arts, science, and every other pursuit. And I mean, any other pursuit. They're undead, they have looser morals. For the quick who live in Malkatar, most native born are here in pursuit of their own undeath. As for foreigners, they usually are ones unwelcome in their own country. An alliance with a bloodlord or a faction leads one on the path to complete their own goals. Failure to do so is a hard path forward, where any failure means getting eaten up in a back alley. The city itself is divided into 4 main districts. The West, the Main, Ossium Harbor, and Vassar Alley. While the first 2 are relatively large, Ossium Harbor is to the south of the River Rot, only containing the many storage warehouses and the legendary Deathless Arena. Likewise, Vassar Alley is a sectioned off portion north of the River Rot, where the destitute are kept and no good business is ever done. Vassar Alley also divides the Main from the West. Well, I did that backwards, but anyway, Main is to the northeast, known for the Great Grand Sunke Bazaar, which is the main marketplace of the city, and the Meat Market, the main marketplace for food and non-food body parts in the city. As for the West District, the southwest of Vassar Alley, that is where the centers of the government are. This includes the Cathedral of Epiphenomene. I need to try my best to say this word that is 7 syllables long. Epiphenomene, which is the largest temple to Ugathoa on Galarian. The Ebon Mausoleum, which is the city's only magical school, and home to the most knowledge of necromancy in the city, if not on all of Galarian. And of course the Cenarium, the center of Geb's government, and the place where Geb's spirit is forever connected. Or at least until he can satisfactorily finish his battle with Nex. And that is today's video. Thought this would be the perfect end card for this year's October. Also gets us a look at another impossible land country, which is always a plus. Either way, getting close to the end of the year, so next week we're looking at another ongoing project. See you then.